All kinds of things inspired me to do this album, and I'm just realizing what they are right now as I'm finishing it. Because the most obvious one is this conversation I had with Doug Morris, who is my mentor. He broke little earthquakes worldwide. I've known him since the mid-'80s, and he said, I've always wanted to know what you would do. What would you do with a seasonal record? And he said, I'm telling you, I have hundreds of records that are here. Look around you. I have hundreds of them, of people doing carols exactly like they should be done. I have commercial Christmas records of people doing popular songs that we all have grown up with as well. The originators, of course, and then the covers of those songs. And he said, I want to hear the carols like I've never heard them before, but get me all the good bits. And so my mind, it starts to thump, and I'm thinking, my mother is sitting here to my right, who every part of every carol she will cry and think of being in church with her mother and them singing them together. And I'm thinking, oh no, these are sacred cows to my mom. And yet, as I got more and more involved in the project, I began to see that there were possibilities. And I had to let go of how people would want to protect what is familiar. Because you would not have any of the music you have today if you were doing that, because they'd all be drinking songs. That's what most people don't understand. These didn't start off, most of them, as religious songs. They start Holly and the Ivy. That is about the Holly King and the male and the feminine coming together and joining. And then, of course, the Christians got involved and then had it all about something else. But that's not what it was truly about. So unless you had people meddling like me, then you wouldn't have the music you have today. I had to really think very quickly and pull on a training that I had for many years of variations on the theme. And recognizing as I did the research, I started to immerse myself with the New Oxford Book of Carols, which is a book that came out of England. The Anglican Church was around, since the middle of the 1500s or something like that. They had no music unless they took the Catholics' music, and they weren't going to do that. So they took pagan songs, drinking songs, sea shanties, and they would change the words and put their ideology into it. Every corner that I turn. My gauge so far has been that people that haven't been brought up in the Christian nativity story are open to the record and can embrace it without feeling like they're trying to get converted. And then people that are very clear about their religious beliefs are able to embrace the record and hear what they want to hear. And that was really my goal. I wasn't doing the Shock the Christians record. I mean, that is one of my favorite pastimes. But this is not what this is. The record starts with What Child Noel? What child is this? It's joined with something that I've composed and goes into Noel. Candle Coventry Carol goes back to a medieval place. We pulled in brass for that as well as lute. Emmanuel, that's older. That's one of the oldest pieces of music that we know of. Soon after the Catholic Church was formed, that came out of the Dark Ages. So I was working with that, trying to go back to the ancient text and imagining sometimes what might have been there, as well as the point of this record is not to try and give you the point of view of the music of the early 18th century. There are people that do that, and that is not at all what I'm interested in doing. This is the 21st century, and in 200 years' time, that's what I'm looking at. This record might have come and gone and nobody heard it, but in 200 years, they will know exactly what I did. There are a few themes running through it. Of course, being the rebirth of light, without there being shame connected to it, and an attachment of death, or the crucifixion, and all that goes with that. I think that this becomes much more about the elements and the seasons. There is an English folk rock tradition that I think harkens back to your ancient mythology. You pull that in, and Zeppelin always has a bit of that. You said Fairport Convention, and they had a wonderful joining. So yes, I think with Star of Wonder, you have that. My father has been the most encouraging person when it comes to this record. So that's been very exciting. And then of course, Doug Morris has been very supportive. But they're the two polar opposites. One, the minister, who would be very hurt if I didn't respect that there is a deep Christian tradition. But then Doug would be really bummed if I didn't respect that there are other traditions as well.